What is going on, guys? I am Watch Jericho, and today we are back with my Bentley Continental Flying Spur, the monstrous four-door, and today we're going to keep troubleshooting, or at least see what's next. What is going on, guys? I am Watch Jericho, and like I said, I'm here with my Bentley Continental that I picked up for just $12,000. And we've been working on it, trying to get everything sorted out. The main issue with this car is every module has a problem with terminal 15. This is the Kessie. This is what authorizes the start for the entire vehicle. And for some reason, we're not getting start authorized, but we do get a terminal 15 error. It doesn't make any sense because the terminal 15 error, according to all of the diagnostics, means there's a problem with the ignition relay right here, which is J329, or 433, relay 433 in the hood fuse box. So today we're gonna start looking around there, hopefully get that fuse box out so we can take a look at that. I've actually heard from some Bentley techs, shout out to you guys, that they replace a ton of the wiring harnesses in that front fuse box because water sits in the cowl and causes corrosion and wires to break in there. So there's a good chance that's what happened to this. In the last video, we replaced 167. That relay right there powers the ECUs. Now the one behind it, 433, is of course the one we're talking about. That is the relay that's in question. So first, we're gonna verify all of its wiring, its ground, its 12-volt supply, everything like that, and then we'll move on to probably checking the relay here. I do think this relay is fine. I actually pulled the cover off it once. It was the first thing I checked. The coil, everything like that, it looks excellent. So we really need to get this entire fuse box out of here so we can see what's going on underneath it. These are the battery cables coming up from the back of the car. They all junction right here, and somewhere in here, this fuse box gets some power, so I need to figure out where that is. So I powered the car up again for the first time in like a week, and I was like, you know what, let's try both keys again, just because, and I found out that only that new key, the replacement, that was like a, what do they call those, an X-horse key, that's the only one that will open the lock cylinder. So what's weird is the original one that looks like it's original to the car. It won't unlock the car, it won't lock the car remotely, and it's not keyed the same. Now, the Bentley ignition, if you didn't know, is a complete joke. There are no tumblers in it. So you can literally just stick a screwdriver in it as long as, you know, the coil can have its conversation with the key. This ignition cylinder right here, this is the one that has no tumblers. Either key turns it just fine, and that checks out with the screwdriver or key method there, but of course there's a coil there and a serial data link back to the Kessie so that it can read the key and then transmit that key conversation back to the Kessie for authorization. Now, for some reason, every single time we restart this car, I get a completely different set of codes. So this is a fresh code pull. I think after this, I'm going to clear them and we'll scan it again after that so we have, you know, a nice clean starting point. And since the last video, I've learned a lot more about the Kessie, basically reading thousands of pages about this thing, trying to learn everything top to bottom on how it works. So there's a lot involved with the conversation here to start the car. And obviously I have the car start diagram somewhere else, but the Kessie has to talk to the Prindle, the park solenoid lock switch, has to talk to the key cylinder, it has to talk to the steering column, it has to talk to both ECUs. There is a lot of stuff that has to go on before this thing will start. Now the steering column is a very crazy one. Normally you'd put a key in a, you know, a column and a pin would be pulled out that's just driven by a solenoid or the key itself mechanically, and the steering wheel unlocks. Well, the steering wheel is unlocked on this car. And that got me thinking it really could be the steering column. So how this thing works is there's a gear motor in there with this gigantic turntable. And that turntable is like a piston that pulls out this huge pin that locks the steering column in place. So it's a worm gear on a turntable. Turntable pulls, and that pulls out this giant pin that lets the steering wheel unlock. Of course, that's super complicated. So it has a limit switch on each end that detects if the steering wheel is locked or unlocked. Now this one's unlocked, and I don't know if it's supposed to be unlocked or if it's just stuck in the middle position. So if it's supposed to be unlocked, then eventually the motor should pull it back into the lock, but it never locks. So I am truly wondering if it's an issue with the steering column, which is a whole nother tangent, or if it's this terminal 15 thing that we're chasing today. So this is not an easy car to win. It could be the column, It could be the Prindle because it was in neutral. It was forced into neutral when I got it, even though it's back in park now. And it could be, you know, broken wires under the hood. So we're trying to check all these things at once and troubleshoot them all at once. I bet you guys didn't think the Bentley story could get any stranger as we keep finding more and more issues as time goes on. But it does. I'm telling you guys, the story gets so much crazier because I bought it from a seller that bought it in Mannheim, but the seller before him bought it from Copart. And of course it has a salvage title. And I found out all the details on it using AutoAStat. So the founder of AutoAStat, which stands for Auto Auction Stats, reached out to me and gave me a subscription to his platform so I could do some more research on the Bentley. Now, I threw the VIN to the Bentley in there and I got all the pictures from when it was at Copart. That's what I'm showing you guys right now. The car looks beautiful. And if you scroll down, it shows that the car ran and drove when it went across the block in Copart, which is cool. And then it says, damage, engine burn. Now, I haven't seen the evidence of that yet, but I do assume that that is the reason that it got salvaged. Obviously, the Copart data doesn't come from, nowhere. It's not just made up. So at some point, it may have been on fire as well. So beyond all of the cut up harnesses and hacked in things that we're finding on the car, there was a fire in the engine bay. Now, there's nothing in there that's too crispy that I've seen yet, but I would not doubt that we start running into wiring harnesses that are burned up with melted wires. And that is a whole nother ballgame. It's not the simple troubleshooting we're doing right now. It's just burn up insulation and shorted wires. So that could be an absolute nightmare. Now, if you guys want to do your own research like this on salvage cars, maybe you want to buy some, flip some, rebuild them, whatever you want to do, AutoAStat can help you out with that. I'm going to throw a link in the description below, and AutoAStat can help you actually run really inexpensive auto checks and VIN reports, and it can show you all the salvage auction history of a vehicle. So it can be incredibly useful to find out things that you clearly didn't know before. I definitely did not know the Bentley had been on fire. Anyway, back to the Bentley. Well, it's dark outside now because I've scanned the car twice and it takes quite a while, but now I'm back looking at the live data from the Kessie and I found something very interesting. There's a whole bunch of line items for the electronic steering column lock, and they're all showing bad statuses. 25-1, electronic steering column lock authentication, the range is invalid. And another good one, electronic steering column lock position, it says possible or impossible. It's impossible. I'm gonna jump in here. Steering column electronics pass, no fault. Let's see if we can see some live data from it. I don't know if we can or not. Steering column actuator test. I'm running it right now. We should hear that motor like zoop, zoop. Nothing. Didn't do a single thing. All right, we learned some more stuff. I got the entire center console out of this car, unhooked everything again, and guess what I found? No matter what gear position the Bentley shifter is in, the Kessie reports that it's in position 0, and 0 references drive sport. You can see all the positions right there, and we should be reporting 6-0, but instead we have all this nonsense. So it says it's in the middle of drive and sport. That is unfortunate right there. If the car is actually in drive sport, nothing changes at all. If it's in drive and manual shift, nothing changes at all. The gear shifter does not output anything from what I can tell. I just keep finding more and more terrible things in this car. There's a bunch of cut and exposed wires right there. Looking behind the entire entertainment stack here, I found more broken wires. I did find something really cool. The clock has a CAN bus because it pulls the clock signal from the nav and then automatically sets your Breitling clock for you, which is epically cool. It's this interface right here, which is power, ground, CAN. That's literally all there is, from what I can tell. Red, brown, and one CAN bus. So this will be the entertainment CAN bus, and that's pretty cool. Apparently now I need to pull the entire entertainment stack out. If you look down by these broken wires, that big bar right there with the 2 wires going into it, that is one of the antennas that excites the key and causes the Kessie to read out its key ID. And of course, I don't think that's working either. I just found a lot of the stuff that was hacked into the harness here. This is the Parrot Bluetooth module, which honestly was probably just fine until somebody just cut it up. Obviously we know the controller is in the back, so now that has become an absolute mess. And I'm gonna cut all this wiring out of here and try to fix it all. There is so much stuff tapped into this harness and it is a mess. Just so you guys don't think I'm messing around, look at this harness. It has something like 10 or 15 different cuts in it. There are splices and cuts all over the place, including some of the main 12-volt wires. All the grounds land back there, and they are an absolute mess as well. There's some true antique archaeology. I grabbed the display and plugged that thing back in real quick just so I could see it. You know, like I said in the first video, it's something I always wanted in my life, and I never got to own one. So phone book, everything's disabled if it's grayed out, but you can see calls, voice commands, text, settings. Settings is enabled. If we push in, I just deleted all the devices, but there was nothing saved on it anyway. A couple phones, no phone book, nothing cool like that. The thing still works, it's pretty impressive. You can't hear anything, but it definitely connects to your phone. So now it's time to get back here in the mess and get all of that out of here. If anybody knows where this 2-wire connector goes, black and white with a red stripe, I have never seen that one plugged in, so I need to figure that out. And at this point, I think I'm just gonna rebuild the entire harness wire by wire on this car. Every wire that's cut or broken, I'm just gonna start putting it all back together. Hopefully putting everything back the way it was from the factory will get this thing to come back to life. Obviously, we still need to chase down the steering column. It does need to lock and unlock, and I can actually run an actuation test on that from the steering column and from the Kessie, and it does not move. So that's a very important piece. Also, I've got 12-volt power at everything in that front relay box. I checked that in like the very first video. Every single fuse had power. The relay has power. I mean, I don't see any reason that that doesn't work. So I don't think that's the issue here. I'm much more inclined to believe the steering column because I know that that has to talk to the Kessie, and they both have to agree that the steering column is in a good state. And for some reason, all the lights on it work. I can run all the actuation tests on the steering column module. It'll turn up the radio, it'll turn down the radio, the lights work, every single button works, but the motor doesn't move. So I do think the next thing we need to do on this car is tear the entire steering column down. You got to get the airbag out, you have to remove a ton of trim. But once you get that on a bench, you can actually manually run the motor in and out. And I think that might get this thing to kind of come back to life. Who knows? But that's all I can guess. But honestly, I am just kind of taking shots in the dark with this car because I don't have the guided troubleshooting that the Bentley computer offers. You plug that in and it pulls all the codes and it says start here. And unfortunately, I just have to kind of look at the codes and guess at the starting points and just keep trying things. So that's where we're at on the Bentley. It's way worse. I got the whole car torn apart. That is it for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to head on over to shop.watchjrgo.com for cool shirts, not like this. And please like, share, subscribe, do whatever you want to do. And I will talk to you next time. This is some very real wood. There are tags in there that say Bentley Wood Shop on everything. So that's pretty cool. But now we just have a bunch of holes in the dash. And we're trying to sort out everything the people before me did. It's a disaster. And whenever I take the key out, it says steering defective and alarms. So that could definitely be a part of this. If you can see this cable right here, this is the release to put the thing in neutral. It's supposed to come out all the way over here on the passenger side floorboard, and apparently they messed all that up too. I think they had the entire shifter out of the car because the cable doesn't even run in the right direction. I need to get that back over to the passenger side because if this thing gets stuck with a dead battery, you literally cannot move the car unless you can pull that cable release. You pull up on that cable, and then the car can go back into the neutral, and then you can work on it because now you can get the center console in and out. So I gotta get that in there. It's pretty critical to actually working on this car.